Everybody come on in. I'm getting ready to start in a minute. I'm getting some things together. Today is Sunday, so I've done my diligence and service where I am. So now I'm joining in with all of you. So come on in and let's get started. Quarantine conversations. Today I want to ask you a really serious question and have a little fun with those of you watching. So join me in the comments, and I need you to answer a question for me, if you don't mind. So if you don't mind, I would like for y'all to answer a question for me. As I want to share an experience that I had the other day that was quite fun. But it made me think though. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I am Fred Willis, and we are in the midst of quarantine conversations. We're in the midst of We're in the midst of quarantine conversations, and today I'm going to share a passage of scripture in the midst of this conversation that just kind of hit my mind the other day that I want to talk about. I want to share as we have this conversation. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey everybody, I am Fred Willis, and we're having quarantine conversations. I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me today and having a conversation. The other day I was prompted to ask a question that I want to share with all of you. And the question is very simple. What would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now? It's a real simple question. But it evoked a lot of thought for me, and I want to tell you a story really quickly. Before I go in, actually, as I get into it, I want to show you this young man right here. Do you know him? Wow, a 17-year-old me. I think that was 17. That may have been 16 years old. But this young man was on his way to the Berklee College of Music to study. What was I going there to study? I was going there to study music, audio engineering, and I had a scholarship, but the scholarship wasn't a lot. I do want to put this out there, y'all. I had a scholarship to Berklee College of Music. It was not much, but I did have a scholarship. Shout out to Jimmy and Jameson. We recorded my scholarship demo tape at church, after church actually, and so we recorded then. And I thought that was just great. I just want to shout those guys out because I feel like they were instrumental in helping me achieve that. So shout out to those guys. So over the course of the years, I'm 37 now. So now I'm talking 20 years later. I graduated when I was 17. So my birthday was later that summer. I wasn't a year ahead. But anyway, so in the process of all of that happening, life happens, right? So I didn't end up going to Berklee. I ended up going to Weatherford College at the recommendation of Rachella Washington. Shout out to her as well. And so I ended up going to Weatherford College. Rachella sent me there. I was there on a full ride. I was an RA. I did all that cool stuff. Any of you know, life picked up at Weatherford. A lot of good things happened, but I was talking with my wife the other day, and she asked me a question that just got me thinking. She was like, I can't remember what she said. I mean, it was just in passing, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. She was basically saying, if I wish that I would have went to Berklee, and I really do. But then I was reminded of this passage of scripture that I have to share with you. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I want to do this because I don't want to be on long, even though I think I might be. I'm going here. Proverbs 19:21 says that there are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, that shall stand. And it was the verse of the day, one of the days last week, and it's paraphrased like this: it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. It's real simple, isn't it? So I wanted to go to Berklee College of Music. There's me at 17, 16, 17. Again, look at that full head of hair. But anyway, I wanted to go to Berklee. I really wanted to go to Berklee. I had been looking at other colleges like SUNY in New York, Oberlin College in Ohio, Philadelphia University of the Arts, which I thought about going there because that was a school where you actually had to be smart, you had to be intelligent and artistically gifted. So I wanted to go there, but I didn't end up going there either. I went to Weatherford College. They call it Harvard on the Hill. That's where I ended up going. And I don't have a problem with that because so many great things happened when I was at Weatherford. I actually began playing in church. I learned the Hammond organ. I learned church music ministry during those years at Weatherford. So no, I don't regret going. So I asked the question, what would you be doing? What would I be doing if I were not doing what I'm doing? I am a musician. I'm an audio engineer. I'm a minister. So I'm a communicator too. So when I'm not preaching, it's public speaking. I do stuff like that. I've dabbled in things like photography. Some of you that follow me, you know, I'm shooting those pictures on the red carpet. I'm shooting those events and things like that. Photography. Let's see what else. I've just dabbled in a lot of things, right? But a few things recently, once I learned how to dress, I really started trying to put things together. And so one thing I would say was like this one, stuff like maybe I could be a stylist. I would style myself, stuff like that. Maybe that's cool. I could do that. In my picture, this picture is actually on my business card that you see right here. And more recently, the photo shoot for my book, The Journey to Genesis. These are things that I use, just to kind of say to myself, maybe I could do this. Maybe these things are possible. But hey, that's that. And I am not going to show you these next pictures because they're embarrassing. But if I were not a musician, if I were not in the music industry, I think I would want to be a barber. I don't know why I would want to be a barber, but I would want to be a barber. I like being a barber. Also in there, I think some days I want to be a mortician. I don't know why, but some days I just feel like I think I got the nerves for it. I know I don't, so I haven't pursued that. But one last thing, that if I were not in music at all, I would be a chef, or at least a line cook, something like that. So every now and again I take pictures of my food when I'm cooking, preparation and stuff like that, finished product. It doesn't always turn out the way that I want it to, but I've worked in kitchens, I worked in the deli, worked at fast food restaurants. And so I've learned, how to prepare, how to cook. I haven't gone to like the upscale things of how to cut and how to plate. I was joking about that this week, that I got to learn how to do that. But I do like to cook. And I like to put a lot of love in it too. So, just here's some of the stuff that I've made. And I watch a lot of TV. My wife watches a ton of television. And so, no, she doesn't, but I do. But she watches cooking shows. So when she's, like before we go to bed and stuff, she's got Chopped on. I hate Chopped because they always give them stuff that nobody would want to cook with. So, but she watches cooking shows, and so I'm watching those things and how to put stuff together and what flavor profiles go together. I think I do pretty good. I'm not perfect, but I do pretty good. So stuff like this, whenever I can pull off a good meal, I like to take a picture of it. Prep work like that. Like this, what you see here, I like taking pictures of that. Every now and again, I can mimic something that I see in a restaurant. And I definitely want to take pictures of that. And more than cooking, I think grilling is a good pastime of mine. Like this, whenever I got, got the grill looking good, got the meat looking good, I'm going to snap a picture of that. Because it's showing, just my love. This is love in action. This is passion in action, y'all. Some people like to cook and some people like to eat. I like to do both. And so this is, that I got meals covered from breakfast, lunch, dinner, even dessert. This is a pound cake I made. Banana bread. Let's see, what is this? Oh, this is breakfast. This was a Southwest scramble. I wouldn't show you the finished product because, sometimes the finished product, it looks good. I mean, it tastes good even though it doesn't look good. So that one, it was a little too cheesy for consumption today. Here's some more breakfast. This is French toast topped with, this is an apple glaze. It's a cinnamon butter glaze. Whenever you make a pound cake, you got to take a picture of it coming out of that bundt pan. This right here was probably one of the best ones that I made. And if nothing else, hey, you got to get a shot of that first slice. This, I think I had already taken a slice, or maybe I shared it with somebody. But that's my cooking adventure there. And so I say all of this because, as you see, the journey to Genesis is on your screen right here. Sometimes what we want to do and what God wants us to do are two different things. They're on two different planes. And even as I share in the book, sometimes God will use even our desires to achieve his. And so my desire to do music on a global level, though I didn't achieve it fully on a global level, I still believe that God has used what I've done, Stephen. So he's used that. I've traveled to 6 countries and I performed gospel music there. And I believe that even in that, God was showing me a much bigger picture. And so I'm talking about this. I don't want to spend too much time just building this up. I want to try to get to this point. And this is the point I want to do. I was reading Smokey Norfolk's book, Take the Lid Off, Pastor Smokey Norfolk. And he said this, and it's just grabbed me. It said, God, give me the grace to handle your dream for me. And I've got to confess that sometimes the dreams we have, in high school, I wrote a song and performed it at graduation. See, I was on my way doing something, y'all. I still am on my way doing something. I have done things. I'm not trying to live anything down, but I'm getting to this point that sometimes the dreams we have are not the dreams that God has for us. And it's funny, I would say, does God dream? Yes and no. He's the creator. So as I wrote in the book, he has created us for a purpose. And so sometimes the things that we do, we even say, follow your dream. And sometimes in following your dream, you have to be careful that you're not following something that you conjured up versus following what God has created you for. And so we have to pray that prayer. Even Jesus said, not my will be done, but thy will be done. As he was getting ready to do what he had come to earth for. And so I view it this way. I view it this way. As a person, I like to call myself a person of purpose. I am a person of purpose. And so, as I have been talking with you guys over this little time here, I just wanted to share this, that sometimes, the dream you have is not what God's dream for your life is. And you have to be willing to face that reality. I would say, and I shared this in the book also. I'm going to show you the book. I keep talking about it. But sometimes, what we want to happen, God has another way of making it happen. I hear this chant in church now. It's getting ready to happen. It's getting ready to happen. And even as we come out of this quarantine, the things that God is going to make happen, he may not make them happen the way that we want them to happen, even though he will make them happen. So in Jeremiah 29, we know that scripture that says, I know the plans I have for you. And we have to chill out and relax, rest in his promise. This is the season of rest. Just rest in his promises. He knows the plans that he has for us. My brother Jonathan was talking about this the other day. Listen, not even this season will cancel out what he says. And as I read that, I went to Hebrews 10 and 23. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promise. He's already promised it to us. He's going to make it happen. Even if we're waiting, we love to talk about Joseph. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of us would not, cannot, will not endure what Joseph endured. We would quit. We would give up. Even Daniel, some of the things that he endured to bring him to prominence. And as he was brought to prominence, he brought some friends along with him. We wouldn't endure that. It's hard to endure. I'll confess myself. It's hard to endure some of the things that God uses to make his will come to pass in our life. So as I say that, I want to encourage you to just hold on while you're in. Hold on while you're in, while you're being processed. Don't rush the process. That's something that I've shared a number of times that has been picked up. People love it. People share it. Don't rush the process, but also understand that God's vision for your life may be much different than yours. And you have to be cool with that. When I was in Germany, the owner of the company called and she would say certain things to us, and we didn't really like them. We didn't really like sometimes having to make the adjustments that we had to make. And sometimes she had to come down harder on us because she was not there to stand in our stead. So she would tell us, this is what you need to do. This is, I'm speaking for the perpetuity of my company. And some things you don't understand until you're out of the situation. But she would say something that I want to repeat to people now is you have to learn how to be all right with things that you don't like. Learn how to be all right with things that you don't understand. But you can only be all right with it if you trust God. And so, as me and my wife were talking the other day, she said, yeah, if you went to Berklee, you may not have ever met me. And I was like, I would have met you. I'm sure I would have. Because our families were so close, being in church. And then I thought about it, and I was like, she is really right. Even if we met, it may not have been under the circumstances that we met. Life would have been totally different. And so I was like, okay. So even though I didn't achieve that dream, what God has done, I would say trumps what I could even imagine my future would have been as a Berklee graduate. I know Berklee grads, and I got a few Berklee grads on my friends list. And when I was in Japan, one of my tour mates is a professor there. So I got to kind of just sniff the Berklee air for a few seconds while we were on tour, and just she told me stories about being on Boylston Street and all that good stuff. Those were the things that I dreamed about. But God has a way of achieving His purpose in our lives, whether we like it or not. You just got to learn to be all right with it. That's all I can tell you. You have to learn to be all right with that. And so as I was writing my book, The Journey to Genesis, I was able to, I guess, I'm not going to say come to grips with it, but yeah, face that reality that life is so much different. And for those of you, this is not a pity party. This is not a pity story, because actually many of the things that I wanted to do, even as a person who did not go to Berklee, I achieved them on the journalism side. So, and I always tell the story about the producers that I would reach out to, and I would, say, hey, how do you do this? What are you doing in the studio to get this sound? Because I never stopped recording. I never stopped playing. You see my instruments behind me. I never stopped doing that. Okay. I serve each week as a minister of music every week. Okay. Every week since Christmas Eve of 2000. So we're looking at 20 years of, working in church consistently. So I would reach out to those guys, and these were guys in gospel music. I never got a reply from them. And it's so funny that as a journalist now, I forgot to say that at the beginning of journalist, okay. These guys have reached out to me. These guys have sought me out. I need you to interview my artist. I need you to listen to this music. I need you to play this music. I need you to write about this music. And so I just watched how, God flipped that thing around, how He flipped that whole thing around. And even though I didn't understand it, back then, I just said, wow, this is so interesting. When you don't give up on God, you don't give up on His plan for your life. It's okay to give up on your plan for your life. Just don't give up on God's plan for your life. That'll change your perspective. Don't give up on His plan for your life. Even though, after some time, you will be forced to give up on your plan. That's totally fine. That's the life lesson in all of this. So I wrote this book, The Journey to Genesis. I'm sharing this with you, and you can see the joy on my face. Listen, things change when you go with God. Okay? You can keep beating on the closed door all you want to. You ain't going to open it. Jesus says in the book of Revelation, He says, listen, I open doors no man can shut, and I close doors no man can open. And that is so true about life. And we have to remember this. That God is the one that orchestrates all of this. He's the one that puts it all together. And listen, this joy right here in this picture, you see the J2G shirt, which is available. It's available for purchase if you would like one. This joy right here is unique because this joy is connected to the will of God. It's connected to the will of God. And so, as I share this with you, I want you to understand this one thing, that it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. It's the Lord's purpose that prevails. Even if I wanted to go to barber school, I wanted to go to chef school, I have wanted to go even to mortuary school. I have gone so far as to starting those applications. I ain't finished them. I have gone so far as to ask the questions that I need to ask I've sought apprenticeships, looked into that. But it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And so you would say, okay, so I wanted to go to Berklee to study recording engineering and music performance. Well, I ended up doing that locally. Okay. And it's so interesting that all the international traveling I've done playing gospel music. But that connection came from Weatherford College. If you read Journey to Genesis, I make that abundantly clear who those people are. Charles McCampbell and his aunt Phyllis McCord-Joubert. And the Glory Gospel Singers, I named them all. It's the Lord's purpose that prevails. Now, I'm going to say this also. When these opportunities happen, it's on you to take full advantage of them. We had, certain things you can't do, certain things that non-compete clauses make impossible. That's just out of ethics. It's good ethics to not do certain things. But you got to take full advantage of every opportunity. It's not God's fault if you get an opportunity and you fail, or you get over there and you just mess it up. You murk it up somehow. That's on you. That's all on you. It's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And so I shared this with you because I want you to understand how important it is, especially in this time of respite and rest, rejuvenation, reset. All of those words are part of this season. Refocusing. You may be in a time of, you might be lost. This shutdown may have found you spiraling out of control, looking at your life and saying, I've done nothing with my life. I wasted my years. Well, we know that the Lord can indeed restore those years that the locust and the cankerworm have stolen and taken away. And even some of the stuff that we of our own volition have done that have caused us loss. He is able. He is yet able to bring you to the point of achieving his purpose and will for your life. And so I say this in closing. This is the street I took the cover photo of my book on. This is the same street in a different season. Same street in a different season. And as I close, I want to share this with you, that God is, in fact, the same God. He's the same God. Same God even in different seasons. Even as we try to figure out what in the world is going on now, he is the same God. And he has a purpose and a plan for your life, a reason that you were created. And his will is the most important. Proverbs 19:21 is paraphrased to say, it's the Lord's purpose that will come to pass. And so don't ever get to the point to where you think life is over, or just because you haven't achieved the things you thought you would achieve or that you should have achieved by a certain point in time, that it's over. God can use all of that. I showed you my passions. And, a lot of people say, well, how can I find my purpose? They say, well, follow your passion. Sometimes that's true, and other times it's not true. Sometimes that's just not the way it is. So when people ask me, how can I discover my life's purpose? I always tell them, pray about it. It's really not that mysterious. You pray about it, and you allow God to conform you to his will. There's a conformative work of a relationship with God. There's a transformative work, but then there's also a conformative work where, what he does, what he thinks is what matters. It becomes what matters to you. And so I still get emails from Berklee. I'm on their mailing list. Their new semester is starting. And every time I get that particular email, I want to say, I should dive into it. Should go back. I should do it. Take advantage of it. And I even when I was talking with my wife, I could not understand the numbers from back then. Okay, and I was thinking maybe what they offered was actually enough, plus getting a loan. Everybody's gonna need a loan in something like that, unless you're a virtuoso coming in, especially from out of the country. Get a full ride or something like that. But I was like, man, did we get that wrong? I went to sleep that night just like puzzled. I was like, how did I let that slip, between my fingers? A scholarship to the most prestigious music university in the world. Okay, in the world. You might say, okay, there's schools, performance schools in Russia or whatever. in Asia. No, man, everybody comes to Berklee, okay? They come to Berklee. You either pay the U.S. fee or you pay the international fee. That's how serious Berklee is, because everybody comes there. And even as a resident of Dallas-Fort Worth, I thought about going to UNT. But UNT didn't offer recording engineering. See, I was going to study recording engineering. There was a scholarship that had come up, I think, my sophomore year for a minority student to play the euphonium. This is how crazy this is. And I guess all I needed to do was get in touch with them. But I didn't even want to play symphonic music anymore. It was going to have to be, playing classical music and stuff like that. Y'all, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to study recording engineering. And actually, the scholarship I had, I didn't even mention it. It was on drums. It was on drum set. So it was on drum set. I was going to be a drummer. So I played horn all the way through school. And I said when I graduated, I wasn't playing it again. Because school, they locked me in on the horns and stuff like that. I was like, yo, I play drums every weekend. I want to play drums. I could read drum music. So I played the tunes to audition. I sent my audition tape and got my scholarship letter. And I was like, yo, this is not enough. So I was going to play drums, not euphonium, though I was still sharp, okay? I was still sharp enough. I could have at least tried. But, I knew that was going to kick my butt. It was going to kick my butt if I was going to college playing it. No. And some other schools I wanted to go to, like Grambling or Southern, I didn't want to march anymore either. So I was done with all of that. I can still march heel toe, right? I got it. I didn't want to march anymore. And I said that I didn't want to be up at 6 o'clock. I didn't want to be out in the field all day. I was done with marching. I was done with classical music. No shade to you classical musicians. I was done with that. I wanted to study contemporary music, and I wanted to learn how to produce it. So that's why I was going to Berklee. That dream did not come true. However, what the Lord has planned and envisioned for my life is yet unfolding. And that's all I want to encourage you to do today, is just allow the Lord to shape your life. It's a Sunday. We're in this quarantine, lockdown, shutdown, whatever. It's time to think and reflect. It's another R. Time to reflect. Reflect on where we are in life. Reflect on what our life is about. Reflect on that, because as we are released from this, when we are released from this, life won't be the same. And you're going to need some kind of knowledge of your life's purpose, to kind of propel you forward in this new normal that we're getting ready to embrace. So as I close with this, I want to show you my book. So this is my book. It's The Journey to Genesis. The Journey to Genesis, a discovery of your creative purpose. And it's quite a read too. It's a heavy read. I have been I'm actually trying to get in touch with some people who have read it, because I need to know what they think about it. I think that it's a book, for everybody. I wrote it, with men in mind, but women have been reading it too. That's great. Because anything to get us moving forward. This is a really interesting season, and some of the stuff I wrote about in this book are crucial for right now. They're so crucial for right now, because you have to know what God is calling you for, why you were created. This is the time to, start working on that. You emerge from this lockdown, this shutdown, this time of quarantine. Quarantine is also a time of purging, a time of, being clean, letting some things go, letting those bad thoughts and habits die off. And as we emerge, we're so much better. So that's what I wanted to share with you in today's quarantine conversation. I want to thank y'all for hanging out with me today and listening to me go on and on and on and talk about this stuff. I was hoping for some comments that we could engage as I asked the question, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now? You can answer it in the replays and all that. In the meantime, I do want to share my book with you. You can go to whoisfredwillis.com, go to the bookstore, and take a few moments and look at my book. You can actually read the first section where I talk about my dream of going to Berklee and things like that. And I think you'll enjoy it. I really do think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy the read. But you know what? I'm going to be back with more conversations during the quarantine conversations, even as they are. And so I will see you next time. When you see the alert pop up, make sure you set a reminder. Come talk to me. We're going to talk in the comments, and we're going to get through this quarantine together. We're going to grow. We're going to be better. We're going to develop ourselves. We're going to become the people that God has intended for us to be during this quarantine. These quarantine conversations are brought to you by the Soul Prosper Media Group and Soul Prosper Radio. I am Fred Willis, and I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today.